It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I made all the kids line up, and if they could throw the tennis ball into the tiny bucket, they got the biggest treat we had.
You were a Scrooge. If they didn't get it in, you didn't even let them take a little lolly.
But I gave them like 5 chances. I mean, if some of these kids, they just couldn't throw it in.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Okay, Mrs. Happy Families, take 6 for our I'll Do Better Tomorrow
65.
podcast. Don't be like that. Number 6. You've still got. Okay, I've just got to put it out there. You seem a bit cranky today, a bit agitated, not at your best. I'm just saying.
I feel like I'm sitting in a sauna. You won't let me have the fan on because it comes through the
microphones.
headphones.
Yes.
And I'm just struggling a lot.
People don't want to listen to a podcast that sounds like while we're trying to talk to them. Doesn't work like that. Welcome to the Happy Families podcast with the cranky Mrs. Happy Families. Today,
I'm not really cranky. Gosh, you're exaggerating.
Really? Well, at least you're smiling now. The Friday edition of our Happy Families podcast is always I'll Do Better Tomorrow. The idea is that we recognise that no matter how much we try to get our parenting right, we never will. And there are all kinds of things that we need to talk about. Practice, do better tomorrow. Hence the title, I'll Do Better Tomorrow. Kylie, today my conversation is all about Halloween because Monday was enormous at our house. And I have to talk about it because I think that I absolutely nailed it. What about you? What's your I'll Do Better Tomorrow going to be about?
Well, hopefully by the time you finished your story, I'll have one to share too.
Okay, all right. So let's talk Monday. We had been warned when we bought the house that we now live in that this street is one of the busiest streets in our suburb for Halloween. And we were also warned that the people who used to live in this house had the ultimate Halloween party and the place just gets packed, like big time packed. So how many pieces of confectionery do you reckon you had ready to hand out to people, one per child?
I brought over 1,200.
That is so much.
So, a little popping candy and stuff like that. But it was all individually wrapped, obviously. You need...
Yeah, so that we could hand it out to people. Right. So I think that I did the best Halloween ever. What I decided was...
you decided was you left me. Let's paint the picture because this was our very first Halloween. We've never done Halloween
You're making me look really bad. I had an emergency. Okay, so let's go back. If you're we have to do this properly. So last week, I have a really expensive road bike, right? Like I love to ride my bicycle. And last week I had it on the car. I had it on the roof racks.
Okay. If you're going to tell the story, then you have to go all the way back to the very beginning when you brought said bike.
Yes.
With your roof racks.
Yes.
And you sat me down and gave me an entire conversation about if I ever was to drive your car with your bike
on the roof,
that I was never allowed to drive underneath a undercover car park.
Yes. Thank you so much. And also because I've had bike insurance for I don't know how long, like 7 years for all of my nice bicycles, and I've never used it. I decided to cancel my insurance when I bought the best bike that I've ever had. And last week, while I was driving in a hurry to do something, I completely forgot that the bike was on the roof and I drove it into an undercover car park. And the bike, you're laughing when I say this is not funny. This was heartbreaking. This crushed me. The bike.
I know it was heartbreaking for you, but I can't tell you how relieved I was
that it was me,
when you told me that you had done it, because I don't think our marriage would have survived if it had been me.
Oh, don't say that. No, that's not true.
Well, I would definitely never have lived that one down.
I would have hugged you. I promise you. I would have hugged you and I would have said, you feel worse about this than me if it had been you. I guarantee I would have said that. Anyway, so I've driven into an undercover car park with my... I'm not even going to tell you how expensive this bike is, but it's more expensive than some small cars. Like this is an expensive bike. I've saved up for years and years and years to buy it. It's literally one of the best bicycles on the market. For those of you who are cyclists, I'm going to brag for a second. It's what's called a Pinarello Dogma F12. Like this is the pinnacle of bicycles, and I've driven it into the undercover car park, and not only did I damage the bike, but I hit the undercover car park cement roof at such velocity that the bike and the roof racks were ripped from the roof of the car. And when I finally stopped the car and turned around, the bike was still attached to the roof racks on the concrete beside the car. The car has been damaged. Like we're up for huge amount of money in insurance costs because the car has been really badly hurt. Because roof racks are not supposed to be ripped off a car by a bicycle hitting a concrete undercover car park. So anyway, I've had a very, very, very bad week. That was last week. And I pretty much cried for 3 days. I can't believe you're laughing at me. But on Monday, Halloween, I finally went and spoke to the insurers, not insured
the bike hospital.
Not insured for the bike, but I got the car looked at by the insurers, and so we got that booked in. And then I called the bike hospital. There's a place in Brisbane that repairs carbon bicycles, and we had to pull the entire bike apart, but I had to actually get in the car and drive all the way down to Brisbane and go through this long process with them where we're trying to work out how badly damaged the bike is. Is it written off? Have I lost all of it? Can we salvage it? We had to go through that entire process. And while I was there, I said, well, if we're going to do all of this, we might as well repaint it so it feels like it's a brand new bike when I get it back, assuming it's salvageable. So I decided to spend some more money there, which I may not be doing now that we've had this interest rate hike again. But the whole point of this story is that you're saying that I left you behind, but I didn't. I was dealing with an emergency and I had to.
Well, my emergency was the fact that there's been so much pressure around this Halloween. Because Emily had gone to play with some of the neighbours on Sunday and she came home in an absolute flap because we had not decorated.
That's right.
And she was like, we have to do it now. We're not going to have enough time if we don't do it now. I said, it'll be okay. She's like, oh, you don't understand. Everybody does it. And our house is the best house.
The whole neighbourhood knows that our house is the Halloween house in the Halloween street in the Halloween suburb. So
you disappeared.
I kind of did, but I was doing important things. It's not like I was being negligent and abrogating my responsibility as a husband and father. I was looking after my bike.
Your bike.
Oh, honey bun, don't be like that.
While I decorated.
And you did an amazing job.
The front of the house.
An amazing job.
So that everybody knew that they could come to our house.
Okay. So fast forward, it's the afternoon. I walk in the door. You say, oh, I've got to now vacate the house.
No.
I've got errands to run. You're going to look after the screaming hordes, the masses as they come through the gate asking for lollies.
Where was I going?
You were going to take one of our children to an activity, pick her up from school, take her to one of her after-school activities.
Thank you.
And like a planned extracurricular activity. So I'm stuck in the driveway, and I thought to myself, I love the community aspect of Halloween. I love that people are out and about with their kids and their families. In fact, I've got to just address something before I say what we did. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like this because child safety issues. So there's an amazing podcast out there called Cautionary Tales with Tim Harford. And he shares this incredible episode just before Halloween talking about how there is literally not a single documented case of any kind of foul play occurring to any children on Halloween ever, apart from a couple of people giving kids laxatives. But they got charged. They got in trouble from the police, caused some reputational damage. And there was one tragic story of a father who did badly by his family, and it's a devastating, devastating story. But other than that, this idea that our kids are at risk because they're out and about on Halloween, he shows that statistically they're more likely to get hit by a car while they're crossing the street on Halloween asking for lollies from someone than they are experiencing any kind of foul play from anyone. I mean, it's a safe, wonderful, community-minded, everyone out and about having a great time kind of event. So just had to put that out there. So I'm in the front yard. People have to come through our spooky gate that you've put together. And I'm thinking, I don't want to have this transactional. Kid shows up, can I have some lollies? I stick some lollies in their bucket and they walk away. I'm thinking, that's lame. We can do better than that. And you bought more than 1,200 individual pieces of candy. So I figured we can have some fun with this. So I grabbed 3 buckets, a really little one, a medium-sized one, and a really big one. And I drew a line on the driveway with the chalk. And I got a whole bunch of tennis balls. And I made all the kids line up. And if they could throw the tennis ball into the tiny bucket, they got the biggest treat we had. If they could throw it into the medium-sized bucket, they got the medium treats that we had. And if they could throw it into the big bucket, then they got the littlest treats because the big bucket's the easiest one. And then I just made them line up. And I gave them 3 shots. And if they couldn't get it in, I said, oh, sorry. You don't get a treat. It's a trick. See you later. But the thing is, we had, I without a word of a lie, I reckon we had 500, 600, maybe 700 kids come through our front gate with their parents. Like, our house was insane. It was berserk. And I've got all these kids throwing tennis balls. Tennis balls are going everywhere. We're just having giving away lollies. I'm sending kids out because they couldn't get them in. I'm bringing the toddlers in.
You were a Scrooge. You wouldn't if they didn't get it in. You didn't even let them take a little lolly.
But I gave them like 5 chances. I mean, if some of these kids they just couldn't throw it in. But there were toddlers. We brought them nice and close. There was a little girl who came through in a wheelchair. We gave her the opportunity to do it in a way that she was going to succeed. I even tapped the ball in for a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I did see you do that.
I was trying really hard to give these lollies away. I didn't want to keep it all. But I think we nailed it. Like the kids got to a point where I was so exhausted because for 2.5 hours, I just chased balls and yelled, said, come on, you can do it, and kind of giving these instructions. And after about 2.5 hours, I was like, I'm so done. Guys, we're just going to give you the lollies. You don't have to throw the ball anymore. And the kids are like, no, we've been lining up so we can throw the ball. Like they literally wanted to throw a tennis ball into a bucket to get a lolly. They loved the challenge of having to do that rather than the alternative. The other big story that came from it, and I don't know if I did this right or not, but there were a couple of teenagers that got to the front of the line at one point, and a teenage girl, I reckon she was 14 or 15, she missed, threw out an F-bomb, like just bang. And I was like, did she actually say what I think she said? And I let it go because it was so short and so sharp and so there was so much noise. I was not sure if that's what she'd actually done. She had her second shot, and this time she did it again. I just looked at her and said, you can leave, no lollies for you. And she looked at me and didn't even argue. She just walked out. She was like, yep, sorry. And she knew that she'd overstepped. Like, there's kids, there's families everywhere, and there's this kid doing that. So that was my I'll do better tomorrow. Next year, we're going to have an even better competition, an even better challenge, skill test for kids. But that's what we're doing at our place so that they can earn their sugar. They can earn their treats. I think I absolutely nailed it. And that's my brilliant parenting moment. I let the kids wander the streets without my supervision. Well, I gave a whole lot of other, like 600 other kids lollies. What do you think about that, Mrs. Coulson? And I even made it back from Brisbane and the bike shop in time to do it all.
You're amazing.
I do what I can. I wish I was amazing when I was driving with my bike on my roof. Then I wouldn't have had to have gone down to Brisbane in the first place. Any feedback? Are you happy with the way that Halloween went?
Because there had been such a massive talk up about Halloween, I was really nervous about how it would all happen because the neighbours had literally said, you won't have time to open and close the front door. Like there are just so many kids coming through. And so I was trying to work out how we were going to make this work. And I really loved the idea of doing an activity. Just to clarify, in that you won't have time to open and close the front door, there'll be so many kids coming to this house. At one point, I reckon there was probably 50 kids in line to throw the ball. I mean, it was relentless for 2.5 nearly 3 hours. At multiple times we had that around about that many people. Yes, several times. There were ebbs and flows, but I was blown away. I don't think there was any ever less than 10. Once it started, it was just on. I mean, it was relentless. I feel like I'm still recovering. So I wanted to do something really, really low key, just so we could kind of get a feel for it this year. But next year, I think that what would be really good is if we actually had a few different stations, so the kids weren't all waiting for one station. Oh, well, we'll get the kids involved. We'll get our kids involved in running those stations. Because time and time again, the parents were like, this is great. Yeah. And what I loved it, one parent actually said to me. It was so basic though. It really was. It really was. I was a little bit embarrassed about how basic it was. But one parent actually said to me, she said, this is a really good idea. This kind of slows everything down and you don't go through so many lollies. And that wasn't our intention at all. The giving away lollies wasn't our intention. Yes. But slowing things down was 100% our attention. Like you said, we didn't want to do this transactional thing. We're in this new neighborhood. We want to meet people. Yeah. We want to actually add to the community. And there was just such a wonderful community vibe. Yeah. And that's what I'm loving the most about what we're striving to achieve here. Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff. You were a little bit cranky at me for letting kids leave without winning a treat. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I wasn't. I still think, like, you got to demonstrate your skill, and if you can't get it, we'll give you more chances. And they could go back to the back of the line. Could you imagine sitting for me, I'd be the person standing at the front of the line, and no matter how many chances you gave me, the pressure is on, and whenever I feel pressure, I just will never get there. So I was that kid, and it's because it's not a prize, right? And so for me, it was all about just everybody having a good time, and I would have preferred that everybody walked away. Well, I did see you sneaking some treats to people who I kicked out without actually passing the skill test. I did see you flicking a few treats in that way. Maybe. Yeah. All right. Hey, we've talked a long time about Halloween. We've got about a minute and a half left till the end of the podcast. What's your I'll do better tomorrow? Look, in all honesty, I've just been a little bit out of sorts all week, and especially around bedtime. The kids, I can feel it as the end of the year comes.
Yeah, end of the school years, only a few weeks away.
Everybody's starting to feel a bit ratty.
Yeah.
They're struggling to get out of bed in the morning.
Sun's up later in the evening, sun's up earlier in the morning.
And so everything is just starting to feel sluggish. And at night time, the kids are going to bed later and later and later.
Yeah.
And this week in particular, I've just felt a little bit frustrated because my time with you is so limited. And at night, especially our 8-year-old, the bedtime's just creeping up.
Yeah.
And getting later and later and later. And as a result, by the time you and I finally get to go to bed, I'm so exhausted. I just want to close my eyes. There's no pillow talk. There's no time to actually be together and connect. And as I reflected on all of the frustration and angst that I have been feeling and the fact that bedtime has been getting more and more frustrating, I realised again for the umpteenth time that while ever I have my own agenda when it comes to bedtime, it just pushes everything out. It's almost like the kids can read your mind. They know that you've got something else you want to be doing and they just push it every time. And when I can just let go of that and actually go, you know what, I'm just happy to lay here with you, even if it takes 10 minutes, things go so much smoother. But I had to get through a really crappy week to remind myself.
I've noticed how good you've been at night in terms of being relaxed and just walking the kids through it bit by bit, just shepherding them as they do it at their own pace. A quick shout out as well to everyone at Pembroke and Adelaide, where I spoke last night, and also the Clare Valley Children's Centre. I got to hang out with them on Wednesday night. So you've done it a little bit on your own this week as well. It's been a kind of a tough week for you from that perspective. The last thing that I want to mention is November 28, we've got a webinar coming up that I think you'll love. If you are a Happy Families member, it's included in your membership. If you are not a Happy Families member, I really think this is going to be one that you will absolutely want to get a hold of. It's called No Damage Discipline. No Damage Discipline. This is a webinar that's coming off the back of the conversations that I've been having recently about smacking on a current affair and time out and a whole lot of other challenges that parents are having with discipline. Everyone keeps on saying, you keep on saying that we have to be more gentle with our kids and we're not supposed to hit them or forcibly isolate them, but what are we supposed to do instead? This is the response. No Damage Discipline. It's a webinar on November 28th. You can get all the details at the Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families Facebook page. Really hope that you've enjoyed our conversation today and that it's inspired you to, I don't know, have a better Halloween next year or instead just be more present for the kids and slow things down and get that gentle shepherding happening through the evenings or the mornings to make things happen. Only about, 5 weeks to go until Christmas holidays and we can all take a big breather. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rullon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And if you'd like more info about No Damage Discipline, the upcoming webinar on November 28, please visit us at Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families on Facebook or happyfamilies.com.au.